What if the woman who sings the loudest in church is the same woman who hunts at night? What if the sweets given to children are not gifts, but invitations? Every Sunday she kneels before the altar. Every night she walks on 4 legs. She does not steal money. She steals footprints. She does not carry knives. She carries prayers she pretends to pray. In this village, evil does not hide in the forest. It sits on the front row in church. Listen carefully, because some witches don't fear God. They use his house as cover. Before we begin, subscribe, and don't forget to like if you enjoy the story. In the heart of the village, where red earth stained bare feet and palm trees whispered secrets to the wind, there lived an old woman everyone admired. They called her Mama Kindness, because she always smiled, always greeted first, always spoke softly. Her wrapper was neat, her headscarf always clean, and her walking stick tapped gently on the ground as she moved from house to house. Children loved her most. When they saw her coming, they ran toward her instead of away. She never shouted, never scolded, never chased them. Instead, she dipped her hand into a small woven bag and brought out sweets, biscuits, roasted groundnuts wrapped carefully in paper. She would laugh and say, "Take, my child, eat and grow strong." What the children did not know was that Mama Kindness never gave food without watching carefully. She watched how the child collected it, which hand touched it first, whether the child said thank you, whether the child's shadow fell forward or backward in the sun. Food to her was not just food, it was a door. When a child ate from her hand, she whispered words inside her chest, not aloud, but deep where the tongue of the heart speaks. She believed food carried paths, and once eaten, those paths led straight to the child's spirit. Slow, quiet, unnoticed. During the day, she sat outside her mud house and greeted passers-by. At sunset, when mothers called children indoors, she swept her compound carefully, not because she liked cleanliness, but because she was searching the ground, watching footprints. A footprint, she believed, was a person's shadow left behind. Where the foot stepped, the soul followed. And Mama Kindness had learned, long ago, that if you gathered the dust of someone's footprint, you could call their name without calling it. So she bent slowly, picked sand gently, and tied it inside black cloth. Always smiling, always greeting, always pretending. And no one knew that darkness was learning their names. One footprint at a time. Sunday mornings in the village always began with the sound of bells. Slow, patient, calling both the faithful and the pretending. Mama Kindness never missed it. Before the first cock crowed twice, she was already awake, bathing carefully, rubbing scented oil on her skin, tying her white wrapper with practiced hands. She owned many wrappers, but the white one was special. She said white pleased God. But in her heart, white only helped her hide. As she walked to church, people greeted her with respect. Mama Kindness, good morning. Mama Prayerful, well done. She answered everyone gently, bending her old back, smiling with lips that had learned how to lie without shaking. Inside the church, she chose a seat near the front, not too close to the altar, and not too far. She believed power flowed better from the middle, where eyes could see her clearly. When songs rose, she sang loudly, not because she loved the songs, but because she memorized them. She believed every word spoken in prayer carried weight, and she stored those words inside her memory. Later at night, she twisted them, turned them backward and used them as keys. When the pastor prayed, she closed her eyes tightly, tighter than anyone else. Inside her closed eyes, she wasn't kneeling in church. She was counting names, faces, families she had marked. After service, she hugged people. Her hugs were slow, lingering. Just long enough for her fingers to brush wrists, backs, shoulders. She was feeling for heat, for weakness, for fear. Fear, she believed, was the loudest prayer of all. People left church lighter. Mama Kindness left heavier, carrying everyone's trust, like a basket filled with stolen firewood. And when the sun fell again, she prepared for a different gathering, one where no hymn was sung, but every soul was heard. When darkness finally swallowed the village, and lamps went out one by one, Mama Kindness locked her door from inside. She sat on the floor, crossed her legs and removed her headscarf slowly, respectfully, like one entering a shrine. From a clay pot hidden beneath her bed, she brought out old items, bones smoothed by time, feathers dark as moonless nights, dried leaves that smelled bitter and sharp. Each item had a name and a story. She did not rush. Evil, she believed, hated impatience. Mama Kindness had joined the coven many seasons ago, when her body first began to weaken, when age knocked loudly on her bones. They had told her the rule clearly. Life does not stretch without payment. And she paid. Not with money, not with goats, but with what the heart holds closest. She believed children carried fresh life, untouched strong. And to the coven, fresh life burned brightest. So when the time came, she did what hardened her spirit forever. After that night, her tears stopped visiting her. Her sleep grew deeper, her life longer. At coven meetings, they sat in circles, never touching, never calling real names. They shared methods, not mercy. How to bind a spirit with food. How to confuse destiny with footprints. How to travel without legs. Mama Kindness listened more than she spoke. She learned how to leave her body safely. How to return before dawn. How to erase signs of travel. By the time the rooster crowed, she was always back in bed, breathing softly, like an innocent old woman dreaming of nothing. Mama Kindness believed the ground remembered everything. Every step, every stumble, every hurried run. She said the earth was the first witness God created, and the last one evil learned to read. That was why she loved early mornings, when dew softened the dust, and footprints stood clear, like written names. She never collected footprints carelessly. She studied them first. A deep heel meant worry. A dragging toe meant sickness. Uneven steps meant confusion in the spirit. When she chose one, she knelt slowly, never allowing her shadow to touch it. Using a small calabash spoon, she scraped the sand gently, as if apologizing to the earth. She whispered the person's name 3 times, not loudly, but into the sand itself. At home, she mixed the footprint dust with ash and oil, forming a small dark paste. That paste became a bridge. Through it, she could disturb sleep, cause arguments, slow success, or invite sickness gently. Like a guest who overstays. She never attacked loudly. She preferred confusion, because confused people blamed themselves. At night, when her work required closeness, she shed her body. Her bones bent inward, her skin folded like cloth, and fur replaced flesh. As a cat, she moved silently, climbing walls, slipping through small openings. She pressed people's chests, not to kill, but to remind them fear was near. When they woke gasping, she was already gone, leaving only dread and questions with no answers. Among all her tools, Mama Kindness loved sweets the most, because sweetness carried no warning. Children trusted sweetness. She chose bright wrappers, cheerful colors, and prayed over them, not to bless, but to bind. When a child accepted the sweet, She smiled wider than usual, because acceptance was consent, even if the child didn't know it. She taught the initiated children slowly, never frightening them at first. He showed them games, songs, small tasks. Close your eyes and call my name. Don't tell your parents, they won't understand. Secrecy, she said, was a sign of maturity. One evening, as she gathered sand near the river path, she made a mistake she had never made before. The footprint she collected was calm, firm, peaceful. It carried no fear. When she tried to work with it, the dust refused to respond. Her words fell flat. Her symbols dimmed. Angered, she followed the path to its owner. That night, she turned into a great black cat, larger than before, heavier, and went to press the neck she had pressed many times before. But the moment she entered the room, heat surrounded the air. Not fire that burns skin, but fire that warns spirits. She fled. Humiliated, furious, she turned to an easier target. Child, sweet, and a lie that would change everything. When the moon rose high, pale and watchful, the village seemed still. But Mama Kindness was far from resting. She crept through alleyways, her black cat form gliding silently over walls, through open windows, slipping under doors. Some villagers woke in the middle of the night, hearts pounding to the sound of faint whispers. No one ever saw the voice, only felt it pressing lightly on their minds, tugging thoughts into confusion. She moved from home to home, gently turning small things upside down, spilling water, letting fires smolder longer, whispering mischief into dreams. A man woke to find his cow missing, but the tracks made no sense. A woman found her bread stale, though she had baked it that morning. She never left a trace of herself, only the ripple of unease. Mama Kindness believed fear could be planted as easily as corn, and it grew in silence, invisible, until it choked its host. Even children she did not feed with sweets were not safe. A drawer left slightly open, a broom out of place, a shadow across the wall at the corner of an eye. All were her signatures. By the time the first rooster crowed, the village thought they had imagined it. They did not know the old woman in white had spent the night shaping their minds, bending their luck, sewing the first threads of misfortune. And she smiled quietly to herself, because the night had been good, and the seeds, planted. Not every night went as planned. One evening, Mama Kindness stumbled upon a footprint unlike the others. It was firm, calm, fearless. Even the dust seemed to resist her touch. She bent slowly, scraping a little into her black cloth, whispering the name she had found. But the dust laughed back at her. No power stirred, no obedience followed. The paste she had prepared refused to move, as if mocking her. Frustrated, she muttered under her breath, cursing quietly, shaping dark words into the air, hissing the names of the unseen spirits. But nothing answered. Her cat form that night prowled closer to the house, every step measured, every claw ready. Yet the air around the home burned softly, like a warning fire. She pressed against the door, her sharp teeth nearly touching the ground, her claws scraping the walls, and still she could not break in. Humiliated, she left behind a warning, a whisper of shadow, a flicker of flame, a reminder that even the old and cunning could fail. This small failure, this tiny resistance, angered her more than any village complaint, for she had never been denied before. And when she returned home, her hands shook, not with age, but with the thirst to conquer what had resisted her. The next day, Mama Kindness walked in the market, pretending to admire yams and palm oil, while studying the people around her. Her eyes were sharp, sharper than the morning sun. She watched mothers with children, young girls sweeping the courtyard, men carrying firewood. She could sense who was fearful, who was careful, who had already been touched by small whispers she had left. But that footprint, that dust that refused her spell, haunted her. She muttered over it while arranging her sweets, watching children laugh, testing which one might bring her closer to the stubborn spirit. She knew she had to be patient, wiser than before, because brute force would not work, and rushing might reveal her secret to the wrong person. That evening, she sat at the edge of the river, watching the water flow over the stones, thinking, planning. The ripple of her reflection, her white hair gleaming in the moonlight, reminded her that some spirits were stronger than she imagined. She had underestimated them, and underestimation, she knew, was the deadliest mistake a witch could make. In a small corner of the village, a young woman prayed quietly in her room, her hands pressed tightly together, lips moving softly, tears sliding down her cheeks. Mama Kindness had sensed her, from afar. The calm strength, the quiet faith. She followed the girl's footprints, planning, plotting. For this one would be her next target. At night, she went to collect the sand as usual, hoping to bind the spirit through the dust. But the girl's aura, her prayers, glowed in the darkness, brighter than the moonlight on the rooftops. The witch's power faltered. Words of command fell silent. The dust refused to move. For the first time in decades, Mama Kindness felt true frustration. She hissed, her cat form slinking closer, her claws ready to press the chest she had pressed so many times before. But as she neared, a ring of unseen fire surrounded the girl, not harming but warning. Mama Kindness recoiled. Never had she faced resistance so direct, so pure, so impossible to bend. And in that moment, a new plan began to form. A plan not of footprints or dust, but of lies, sweets, and children who could be stolen in secret. Humiliated but cunning, Mama Kindness turned her gaze toward easier prey. A child, a little one, innocent, trusting, who liked sweets more than anything. She placed the candy carefully. Bright, shiny, fragrant, a small gift, yet heavy with magic. The child reached eagerly, laughed at the colors, tasted the sweetness, and with one bite the spell began. Slowly, subtly, the child's eyes changed, a shadow of obedience creeping in. A whisper of the witch's teachings sliding silently into her thoughts. Mama Kindness watched, smiling satisfied, because while the strong spirit had resisted her, the young could be guided, molded, claimed, unnoticed. She whispered, "Grow, learn, bring others, and one day, the strong will have no choice." By the time the night faded, her plans were already in motion. New victims chosen, new traps set. And the girl whose dust had resisted her remained unaware. But in her shadow, danger was quietly gathering. The village slept, but evil had already begun another day of work. The next morning the village awoke with unease. Mothers found their children unusually quiet. Men discovered doors left ajar. Fires damped before dawn. Even the animals seemed restless, as if they sensed something pressing against the air. But nobody suspected Mama Kindness. She smiled politely at everyone she passed, hugged children with warm hands, and offered small baskets of fruits and sweets. All wrapped carefully, all innocent in appearance. Some mothers whispered among themselves, "Have you noticed how tired your children are? My little boy wakes in the night, screaming, and he never used to." But nobody could imagine the old woman they trusted. The one who prayed, who sang, who always carried herself as good, was the same being who prowled their village at night, turning laughter into whispers, joy into fear. shaping destinies with shadows and dust. And so the village continued, walking, laughing, cooking, oblivious, while the invisible thread of Mama Kindness's plans wove quietly, from the children she had chosen, to the houses she had visited, to the hearts she had touched without notice. Evil, she knew, was most powerful when hidden. And so the night would come again, and with it, her silent footsteps, her unseen claws, and her eyes that watched far more than anyone guessed. Little fingers held the sweet tightly, the one that Mama Kindness had left so carefully. The candy tasted ordinary, even delicious, but inside, small sparks of magic had begun to grow. Mama Kindness watched from afar, smiling thinly. The child had no idea. Yet the lesson had begun. She whispered quietly in the wind, not loud, not frightening, just enough to teach obedience. Follow the path I show, learn what I teach, bring others, and fear no one but me. The child began repeating small words she didn't understand, little chants, little movements of hands. Mama Kindness corrected silently, nudging, guiding, a sculptor shaping clay, molding the spirit slowly, until the child would forget that she had been free. At night, when the village slept, the child dreamed strange things, shadowy shapes, voices that sounded kind, promises whispered. She woke feeling important, chosen, proud, unaware she had already been claimed. Mama Kindness knew patience was the greatest weapon. The stronger the child's mind seemed, the more she molded it gently, because one obedient child could someday bring her the very spirit she could not reach, the spirit that had resisted her before. Mama Kindness could not shake the memory of the footprint that had resisted her spell. Even as her newest apprentice followed her commands, the shadow of failure lingered. She paced in her small room, hands rubbing together, lips moving in silent curses, old bones creaking as if echoing her fury. Why had the dust not obeyed? Why had the prayers of that young woman been stronger than her magic? She had spent decades perfecting every ritual, every whisper of sweets, every collected footprint, every shadowy claw. Yet here, this calm, prayerful girl remained untouchable. Mama Kindness's pride was hurt, and wounded pride could be dangerous. She began planning more carefully. Not just shadows or sweets this time, but misdirection, temptation. Small lies to lure attention, to confuse the girl, to bend her world slowly, until she could reach what the dust refused. The coven had taught her. Patience was as strong as fire, and Mama Kindness had decades of patience. She would wait, she would watch, and she would strike at the perfect moment. Not far from the witch's path lived Blessing, a young mother with a heart wide as the sky. She prayed every morning, sang every evening, taught her little daughter songs of hope, of kindness, of protection. Her house was small, but filled with warmth, laughter, and food shared freely. Blessing believed in prayer, in God, and in love, perhaps more than anything else. She believed that closeness with her child was a shield. Every evening she tucked her daughter in carefully, whispered words over her pillow, and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, a kiss that carried hope, safety, and invisible protection. Mama Kindness noticed her too. From the shadows, the little girl, eager, trusting, the mother, prayerful, always present, always near. These were dangerous traits. Traits that could resist magic. Traits that the witch would have to break carefully. So Mama Kindness waited, studied, and planned, because she knew love could be a barrier. A stronger barrier than fear, than footprints, than dust. and she had never failed to bend a barrier before. One evening, Mama Kindness returned to her black cat form. Silent, fluid, unseen. She crept to Blessing's compound, surveying the house, the courtyard, the little girl playing, the mother kneeling in prayer. She chose a moment when Blessing's attention was elsewhere, and placed a small sweet near the girl. Carefully, wrapped in bright colors. Fragrant. Irresistible. The magic was subtle. The child reached for it eagerly, unaware, and with one bite, the first thread of obedience began to weave. Mama Kindness smiled in the dark, her clawed paw brushing lightly over the earth. The first small step toward bending a new spirit, toward reaching the one that had resisted her before. The one she had failed to touch with footprints and dust. She slunk away, satisfied, knowing that while the mother prayed, the child's spirit had already begun to shift, and with patience, with time, the perfect trap would form. The night swallowed her once more, and the village slept, oblivious, as danger grew quietly inside a small child's heart. Blessing slept lightly that night. Though her body rested, her mind was restless. Dreams came vivid, strange, filled with shadows and whispers. She saw her little daughter, walking among figures cloaked in black, witches and wizards, hands raised, chanting in voices that scraped at the soul. Her daughter's eyes glowed faintly. Not her own. Something else had touched them. Blessing's heart thundered in her chest. She reached out in her dream, trying to pull her child back. But invisible hands held her daughter fast. The shadows laughed softly, low like wind through dry leaves. She woke gasping, tears wet on her cheeks, and prayed louder than she ever had, words pouring out, a river of pleading, a shield she built with faith alone. All night, she repeated the prayers, asking God to protect her daughter, to see what her eyes could not, to fight what her hands could not reach. And as dawn broke, she felt warmth, a presence. Her love had reached her child before the witch could fully claim her. It was subtle, gentle, quiet, but it was enough to plant hope, a hope that would grow stronger than any shadow. Mama Kindness realized the dust and footprints had failed. The girl she had tried to manipulate, untouched. And worse, the mother's prayers had begun to strengthen her child. Her cat form prowled silently, eyes glinting like black coals. She hissed softly, long and slow, fury rolling off her like smoke from a dying fire. She turned back to her simpler prey. The little daughter. The sweet had done its work. The child's eyes reflected obedience now. Curiosity tinged with shadow. Mama Kindness whispered. Small, deadly words, shaping the child's mind. The witch promised power, adventure, belonging, all under the guise of fun. A game. A secret only they could share. The little girl, unaware, followed willingly, unaware that she had already become the bridge, the tool, the connection to the mother the witch could not touch. Mama Kindness's tail lashed in the shadows. Patience was still her weapon, but she would not wait forever. Soon, the mother must be drawn in, or broken, and the coven's ritual could begin. The little girl began changing. Small gestures, whispered words, strange habits. Blessing noticed, suspicion creeping in. But she did not yet know what had truly happened. One evening she stayed close, watching, loving, guiding. She held her daughter's hand, and spoke softly, words of care, of protection, of love. The child hesitated, then trembled, and slowly, in whispers that trembled like a candle flame, she confessed. The sweets, the whispers, the strange words she had followed, but only because she was afraid. Blessing's heart sank. But it did not break. Instead, she held her child closer, praying harder, loving more, showing the kind of care that reaches beyond spells, beyond fear, beyond even darkness. The witch, from her hiding, sensed it. The bond of mother and child. Stronger than her magic. Resisting every trick. And Mama Kindness seethed silently. Plotting, frustrated, powerless, for now. The witch could not reach Blessing. Not her spirit. Not her mind. Not her love. She appeared that night in her black cat form. Massive, claws ready, eyes burning. She pressed against Blessing's chest. Tried to suffocate, to dominate, to force her spirit into submission. But a fire surrounded the mother. A protective circle born of prayer and faith. The witch recoiled, hissing in defeat. No spell, no trick could penetrate it. And in that moment, the witch's voice changed. She confessed everything aloud. All the evil done in the village, all the children she had stolen, all the shadows she had spread. Mama Kindness, not fully defeated, but revealed, shivered in the fire's light, powerless against the mother's love and prayers combined. In the weeks that followed, Blessing focused on her child. She held her, nurtured her, taught her songs, prayed over her constantly. Slowly, the shadows left. The obedience melted. The bond of mother and child grew stronger than any magic. The witch retreated, weakened, forced to abandon her plans. For love and prayer had become shields she could not pierce. Blessing's story spread. A quiet lesson for all. That evil may hide in smiles, in sweets, in quiet, polite hands. But love, genuine care, and prayer are stronger than darkness. She always remembered. It was not just the prayers that saved her. It was love. It was showing attention, closeness, presence, care. Love had guided her child back. Love had defended her home. Love had revealed the witch. And the village learned too. Evil can be everywhere, but prayer, faith, and love can protect even the most unsuspecting hearts. But remember, evil may hide where you least expect it. In smiles, in sweets, in quiet hands. But love, prayer, and care can shine brighter than any darkness. Always protect those you love. And never underestimate the power of faith. If this story chilled you, or made you think, then like this video to show you felt it too. Subscribe, so you never miss another folktale that reveals the unseen. Share it with friends who love mysteries and stories that linger after the sun sets. And comment below. Tell us, which part of the witch's secret scared you the most? Your voice, your thoughts, keep the story alive. And maybe, just maybe, keep the darkness at bay.